Hi, Lix here, reporting from the historic battlefield of Dien Bien Phu. Between March and May 1954, one of the most decisive clashes of the 20th century unfolded in this rugged northern Vietnamese landscape. It wasn't just the end of French colonial rule in Southeast Asia, it was a testament to Vietnam's resilience and a turning point in global history. Dien Bien Phu was more than a military showdown, it was a masterclass in strategy, determination and the evolving balance of power. Nestled in a remote valley, surrounded by steep forested hills, the French believed Dien Bien Phu was untouchable. They fortified their positions and relied on aerial resupply to sustain their troops, convinced that any attempt to breach their defences would be futile. Their strategy was simple: draw the Viet Minh into an open confrontation and overwhelm them with superior firepower. But their confidence would prove to be their greatest weakness. The Viet Minh saw opportunity where the French saw safety. Instead of launching reckless assaults, they transformed the hills, forests and valleys into strategic assets. A vast network of trenches, tunnels and hidden pathways allow them to move undetected, launch surprise attacks and apply constant pressure on French defences. One of their most astonishing achievements was transporting heavy artillery into the rugged hills, something the French believed impossible. With iron determination and ingenuity, thousands of Viet Minh soldiers and porters, including members of ethnic minorities with whom the French had fallen out, hauled dismantled artillery pieces up the steep slopes. The lightest individual components still weighed around 50 to 100 kilos. With ropes, pulleys and wooden sleds, they moved 75mm and 105mm howitzers through dense jungle paths, avoiding roads that were vulnerable to French airstrikes. They also used reinforced bicycles that were modified to carry 250 to 300 kilograms or even more. The artillery pieces were reassembled in fortified bunkers, camouflaged to remain hidden and positioned for devastating precision strikes. Suddenly, the French found themselves under relentless artillery fire from elevated positions, unable to counter effectively. Their fortress had become a death trap, surrounded by cannons they never expected to face. Under the command of Colonel Christian de Castries, French forces struggled to maintain control over their base. They relied on elite paratroopers and heavy artillery, but as Viet Minh firepower intensified, supply lines collapsed and morale spiraled downward. Here you can see the bunker of Christian de Castries, commander of the French army. What had started as an offensive show of strength quickly turned into a desperate fight for survival. After the Viet Minh had cut off French supply lines, troops, food and ammunition had to be dropped by air, while the Viet Minh had not yet installed any air defences. At the heart of the Viet Minh campaign was General Vo Nguyen Giap, a man whose patience and precision reshaped the battlefield. Instead of engaging in direct attacks, Giap orchestrated a tightening siege, slowly encircling the French, cutting off their resources and breaking their will to fight. Under Ho Chi Minh, Giap had founded the armed wing of the Viet Minh resistance movement, building it from scratch in December 1944 with only 31 men and 3 women, and later transforming it into the impressive Vietnam People's Army. Today it has 450,000 active soldiers and a reserve of around 5 million men, while the French army has 270,000 active soldiers and around 64,000 reservists. From a self-taught guerrilla fighter, Giap evolved into one of the most brilliant military minds of the 20th century. He is considered one of the greatest military strategists in human history, on a par with Sun Tzu, Alexander the Great, Caesar, Genghis Khan, Napoleon and Clausewitz. In Vietnam he is revered as a national hero and held as a national treasure, with his name immortalized in streets and memorials across the country. In 1999, I had the honor of being invited to General Giap's home, where I was photographed alongside him and his wife. During my visit, he presented me with a personally signed copy of his book, Dien Bien Phu. Originally published in 1964, the book provides a detailed account of the historic battle that led to the defeat of the French colonial forces in Vietnam. Military experts regard it as an essential read, as it meticulously outlines the campaign's strategic planning, execution and significance. I seized the opportunity to ask General Giap whether now that the military battles had been won, Vietnam risked losing the economic battles, given that resource-rich multinational corporations from East and West could one day overwhelm the country. I wondered if he could envision a theory of economic guerrilla warfare, where small and medium-sized Vietnamese companies could stand their ground against these formidable competitors. Giap laughed and remarked in fluent French that he was too old for such an undertaking, but that younger generations should take up this serious challenge. As weeks passed, in March 1954, the siege in Dien Bien Phu tightened. The fall of Hill Gabriel in April signaled the beginning of the end for French control. By May, Viet Minh troops had advanced to the very doorstep of the French command, severing their last remaining supply routes. The skies, once their lifeline, were no longer safe. Anti-aircraft fire made aerial resupply impossible. After 57 days of relentless siege, on May 7, 1954, the French garrison surrendered. General Giap was the military mentor of my late friend Colonel Dang Van Viet, who played a critical role in the First Indochina War. He came from a family of mandarins. His ancestors were generals, advisors to Vietnamese kings and scholars, and his father had served in the first government of President Ho Chi Minh. After halting his medical studies in Hanoi, Viet joined the Viet Minh, where he quickly rose through the ranks and became the youngest colonel. General Giap entrusted the talented young officer with some of the most difficult tasks during the war. Here you can see Colonel Dang Van Viet, the youngest colonel in the Viet Minh, on the left, and decades later, still sprightly at over 80, he stood firmly by my side. In 1950, Colonel Viet led the first major defeat against the French along Route Colonial 4 near the Chinese border, an event documented by General Yves Gras in his book Histoire de la guerre d'Indochine. Gras, a highly decorated French general, devoted his retirement to historical scholarship. Over just 7 days, Viet's forces eliminated more than 5,500 French troops, proving that the Viet Minh had evolved from a guerrilla force into a fully capable army. His regiment cut off supply lines, ambushed convoys, and systematically dismantled French defences, leading to a decisive defeat in October 1950. Above all, however, the daring feat of Colonel Viet and his men deeply shocked the political elite in Paris and significantly undermined the morale of French troops in Vietnam. This paved the way for the decisive defeat of the hitherto superior French army at Dien Bien Phu just 4 years later and the end of French colonial rule. A half a century after the events, my friend and tennis partner, Viet, gifted me his book, inscribed with a personal dedication reflecting his memories, especially those of this historic campaign. Ho Chi Minh's early political outlook was shaped by his admiration for the United States. Inspired by American ideals of self-determination and anti-colonialism, he envisioned a free and independent Vietnam. During his time in the US, he lived in Boston and New York City, working a variety of jobs and observing American society firsthand. During World War II, Ho Chi Minh and the Viet Minh collaborated with the US Office of Strategic Services (OSS), the forerunner of the CIA, in their resistance against Japanese occupation in Vietnam. In 1946, Ho Chi Minh wrote to President Harry Truman, appealing for American support against French colonial rule. That support, however, never came. The United States ultimately sided with France. Instead, the Soviet Union and China provided assistance. Following France's defeat at Dien Bien Phu, the Geneva Conference of 1954 divided Vietnam along the 17th parallel. This division laid the groundwork for prolonged conflict, eventually escalating into the Vietnam War, or the American War as it is known in Vietnam. The defeat also contributed to political instability in France, hastening the collapse of the Fourth Republic in 1958. Dien Bien Phu shattered more than a garrison. It shattered the illusion of colonial permanence. For Vietnam, it marked the triumph of a century-long struggle. For the world, it became a rallying cry for liberation. From Algiers to Accra, anti-colonial resistance movement saw Vietnam's victory as proof that imperial rule could be resisted and overcome. Today, Dien Bien Phu stands as a testament to the resilience, strategy and unwavering will of a people determined to decide their own destiny. At the heart of this legacy stand General Von Giap and Colonel Dang Van Viet, two exceptional masterminds behind Vietnam's military resistance. Giap transformed the Vietnam People's Army from a ragtag guerrilla force into a powerful military powerhouse. His strategies are analyzed in military schools around the globe, and his legacy is celebrated throughout Vietnam. Colonel Viet, famously dubbed the Great Tiger of Route Colonial 4, spearheaded impactful campaigns against French forces. With his daring tactics, he was showcasing the Viet Minh's evolution into a formidable army. I was fortunate to meet both individuals who deeply impressed me with their intellectual brilliance and modesty. Their strategies paved the way through history and left behind a legacy that echoes in every lesson their achievements impart to future generations. That's it for today. Thank you for watching and for clicking the like button. Please subscribe to my channel. See you soon in my next video.